CFMOTO is fast becoming one of the major players in the motorcycle scene here in the Philippines, primarily because of their relatively affordable big bikes. Early last year, they brought in the CLX 700 Heritage, and it was an instant hit. Late last year, they brought in the CLX 700 Sport. And let's find out more about it in this episode of Beyond the Ride. The bike is powered by a 693cc dual overhead cam liquid-cooled parallel twin engine that produces 73.75 horsepower as well as 68 Nm of torque. It's mated to a 6-speed manual with a slipper clutch. That's exactly the same as the Heritage. Stopping power is provided by Brembo Stylema calipers with dual front 300mm discs, a single rear 260mm disc with ABS. And Brembos are typically unseen in this price point. Keeping bumps at bay, you get an adjustable 41mm upside-down front fork, single rear shock, with adjustable preload and damping. You get 17-inch Maxxis MA ST2 Sport tires, 120/70 in the front and 180/55 at the back. Much more road-oriented than the Pirelli MT60s the Heritage comes with. The feature set on the CLX Sport is pretty much the same as that of the Heritage, with the most impressive being cruise control. Again, not something you typically see on a bike this price. It also has selectable ride modes, Eco, which might be quite important nowadays with gas prices soaring as they are. But I much prefer the other mode, which is Sport. On the top of soaring gas prices, the Sport does identical numbers to the Heritage, 20 kilometers per liter in the city and around 25 kilometers per liter on the highway, with a 13-liter fuel tank. To get those figures, we had to do it the old-fashioned way because the gauge cluster, which shows you pretty much everything you need except for fuel consumption. Now, I love the way the bike looks. I think it looks absolutely gorgeous, even better than the already good-looking Heritage. But because it's a Sport, you can expect it to be a little bit more sporty. Like the seat cowl right here, which has a little seat for a pillion. It also has rear foot pegs for, well, the back rider. And you can actually take this out underneath the seat cowl or the rear seat, depending how you want to describe it. That's where you get the USB port and a little bit of a storage space for paper. Now, since it's a Sport variant, you get clip-on bars, which actually are relatively comfortable, a little bit higher up than I had imagined them to be. However, because they're clip-on bars, when you full lock it, well, your fingers are going to get caught on the tank. And that could be a, well, maybe painful design flaw. I do love the colorway. I think it looks really good with this bike. And maybe I'm a little bit biased because, well, it's the MotoDeal colorway. Now, one thing I'm not too fond of is the, well, carbon fiber on the bike. I would have preferred it if it was honestly matte black, matte gray, or real carbon fiber. The wet weight of the bike is 196 kilograms, which is very manageable, and the seat height is the same as that of the Heritage, 800 millimeters. Now, I am 5'6" with a 764 millimeter inseam, and that's the situation. The foot pegs do retract fairly well because they're right where your feet go when you put your foot down. All right, let's do a quick sound test. As I mentioned earlier, the biggest difference, or at least one of the biggest differences between the Sport and the Heritage are the clip-ons. But the clip-ons are relatively high, so you don't have to be super bent over forward. So it's a little bit more comfortable than you could imagine a bike with clip-ons. And the foot pegs, well, they're kind of rear set and a little bit high, but they're still not comfortable. The ergonomics of the bike are actually pretty good. I kind of like it, considering it's supposed to be sport version of the Heritage. This is really not that uncomfortable at all. The seat is actually nice and cushy, and I could imagine this on a nice long ride that it's not gonna be too bad. Typically, something that's a little bit more sporty oriented, the seat will be a little bit, well, not too comfortable. The position of your body, the ergonomics are not gonna be the most comfortable. But this is actually not so bad at all. Like it's a sporty, aggressive stance position, but it's not uncomfortable. I kind of have to understand how they did this, but it's really not that bad whatsoever. So yeah, I mean, the clip-ons, and another thing about the clip-ons, you don't feel a lot of your weight on the wrists. And that's something that's really important, especially if you want to ride the bike for long distances. I'm really impressed. I'm really impressed with the position on this bike. I like it. I do like it. Because, you know, it has the look, it has the cafe racer feel, it has that kind of vibe about it. But typically, cafe racers are, you know, they look great, they're just not comfortable. This, it looks great, and it's relatively comfortable. It's more comfortable than a lot of the cafe racer-oriented bikes I've ridden before. So yeah, as I mentioned a while ago, the clip-ons will get in the way when you're doing low-speed maneuvers, particularly on full lock, making a U-turn. It kind of, you know, the first time I did it, I hit my thumb on the tank, and it didn't feel great, to be honest with you. But it's something that if you're aware that that's going to happen, you just don't full lock the bike. I mean, if you own the bike, you'll probably get used to that, and it's something that you probably could live with. You know, the bike is a real head turner. You know, it's sexy and macho at the same time, and it's very easy to maneuver and filter in traffic, and the weight is really, really manageable. There's going to be no issues whatsoever. Even for a novice rider or an intermediate rider, this will not be an issue. For beginners, I don't think it'll be an issue at all whatsoever. I do think it's a very friendly, approachable bike. The power delivery is pretty good. In fact, fantastic even. When you're in sport mode, you really feel the motor open up and give you the power that you want, all the way till the top. Now, when you're in eco mode, it's just, you're just cruising along. It's a comfortable place to be, but I do prefer it on sport a whole lot more than on eco. In fact, I would probably keep it in sport all the time. Is it a beginner-friendly bike? I think so. I think if I was getting into motorcycling, I was gonna buy my first big bike, I think this could be a big option. I think this would be one of the bikes that I would look at because it's great value. It really is. I mean, you get a lot of things, right? You get a lot of features for the price of the bike. I mean, I just think it's fantastic value. I really, really do. And plus, it looks awesome. It looks so good. Like when I pass cars and I see myself in the reflection of the cars on this bike, I kind of stare at it. I kind of enjoy the way the bike makes me feel. And I get it. And some of you out there are probably thinking, well, how about CFMOTO? Is it a reliable brand? I honestly think so, because CFMOTO has been in the country for a couple of years now, and it's growing in popularity. It's a bike, it's a brand that people look for, people inquire for, because, partly because of the price tag. It's relatively affordable. But aside from that, they also make good machines, because if it was just affordable and the bikes weren't good, then people wouldn't ask about it. People wouldn't talk about it. But because it's affordable and the bikes are good, then, word of mouth. People will talk about it with their friends and recommend the bike to other people. And that's what's happening with CFMOTO. They look online, they look at MotoDeal.com.ph, they find out the price, they like the design of the bike, and then they ask owners of the bike about how the bike is, and it's always relatively good news. You don't really hear too much negativity about the brand, and that's a good thing. And I think CFMOTO is a brand that's going to keep on growing here in the Philippines. When you think about the competitors of the brand, it's really hard to pinpoint where this thing belongs, right? Because specs-wise, you're looking at other bikes like the XSR 700, the MT-07, the Trident of Triumph, the middleweight bikes of the Japanese Big Four. However, this has more features than most of those. And it's also a whole lot more affordable. So I'm not too sure if I would put it against those bikes. I see it more against one of the classic bikes, right? Some of the more retro, neo-retro, or the modern classic bikes like the Continental GT of Royal Enfield. It's probably closer to that because of the price range that you find this bike in. However, the Continental GT of Royal Enfield, I should say, that is bare bones. There's no tech whatsoever. There's no features. You don't get cruise control. You don't get all the riding modes. You don't get all the other things that you have on this bike. Sure, it's a great bike. Don't get me wrong. I love the Continental GT, but this, close to the price of that, you get so much more. You really, really do get so much more with this bike. Now, okay, honestly, every time I look down, I see the faux carbon fiber. It does kind of bother me a little bit, but when I'm riding the bike, I do feel pretty good. I do enjoy it. I do think this bike is an awesome deal. I really, really do. So in conclusion, it's a ridiculous value for money. I was already impressed with the heritage, but this right here, the CFMOTO CLX 700 Sport, is better. And it can be yours for a price tag of 399,000 Philippine pesos. That, my friends, is an awesome deal. For more information about this bike and other MCs out there, log on to www.motodeal.com.ph. This has been Jinno Rufino. Hope you guys enjoyed. Going to be on the ride.